Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. It is not coming by surprise. It has not gotten most of us by surprise that Professor Mutahi Ngunyi has defected from Uhuru Kenyatta camp to William Ruto. And this is the notice that's shared, public notice. I have defected to William Ruto. I misjudge him using the dynasty lens. But if the facts change, you must change your mind, Ngunyi said in a social media post this evening. And when he was pushed to clarify more, he said, and only a fool does not change his mind. I started Project Hustler Nation, now I must complete it. Iko sawa? Then he put hashtag Ruto Mashinani. Mutahi Ngunyi has been a very strong critic of William Ruto, but I don't think is being a critic, but was only leaning towards Uhuru Kenyatta by convenience. And while criticism sometimes is taken as a matter of principle, but to some, it is at the expense of the personal fortune. It is very true that nearly all of us, if you talk to many political analysts, they normally approaches from few quarters to maybe take a different position. But if your take is of principle, honestly, it's not very easy. For example, someone like me, I cannot listen to anything that will support or anyone that kills people. No. No. I know. No, that one, no. Ladies and gentlemen, I honestly know that Professor Mutahi Ngunyi is at his own, of course, a personal decision to shift and support William Ruto. But this is politics. And being that he was the author of Hustler Nation, there is that which I have realized recently. In a tweet, he told Ruto that Kangumu. And when Ruto went to Mount Kenya, he went there and used the same word saying, Nitawakalia ngumu. So the concurrence of those two words really tells you what exactly has been there. But then the movement or the shift to move to Kenya Kwanza to support William Ruto does not just come lightly. And I'm just looking at it. What is, Ruto successfully, they successfully got some few bloggers. The Pews. Actually, nearly all Azimio bloggers, Twitter bloggers were bought and went the government side. A majority of them, those who were supporting Raila in Twitter, a couple of good bloggers were bought. And Atoli, who was also part of that Azimio team, was also, also moved the other side. And so there have been a spree of mass exodus from Azimio to government side. And I've always said that it is not always about the numbers. It's not about the majority. The fact that people move one end to the other does not mean that things really have changed. But of course, that is the perception that is yet to be created. So I want to divulge more on this defection. Ruto has a strategy to isolate Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And at some time, it will be a matter of Uhuru opting to move to Ruto or not. The isolation strategy is to make sure that anyone around Uhuru Kenyatta is picked. You'll remember Pauline Njoroge confessing that she's been receiving calls and approaches even to support William Ruto at a monthly pay of 500,000. So if someone in the caliber of Mutahi Ngunyi also has to make that move, using Pauline Njoroge's confession as a baseline, then you can see the kind of lump sum that such a high-profile defection would attract. But I would not want to get more into that because that's not in the public. We deal with what is in the public. So Ruto's strategy is to isolate Uhuru Kenyatta. And let me explain something. I think this is where I can put it. During mass action, when mass action was called, the government side or Kenya Kwanza ran a propaganda, did a propaganda that Uhuru Kenyatta was sponsoring the protests. And after doing that propaganda, what we will see is some stage-managed tweets, some tweets emerging that they were trying or rather planning to storm the residence of Uhuru and that of Mama Ngina. Those things were never actualized. But on the other end, we saw areas of Raila Odinga's strongholds that were really the protest. The police were unleashed on those grounds. Now that is the Emali, Mlolongo, Kibera, Mathare, Kisumu, Mombasa, and some other parts. So when that was unleashed, it was very clear because at the end of the day, we actually got a very concrete, the picture came out clearly that Lus were targeted. And that's the truth. Kisumu was killed. Yeah, I like saying it that way. On this one, I don't like going tribal, but on this one, that is the fact. And it does not change. So you would wonder, okay, fine, if you were targeting the financer, then why Raila? Why supporters? So there have been that question. And so at one point, of course, they had to make sure that the Mandamanos are stopped. On that, there was ethnic profiling, but it was on the side of Raila Odinga. And, you know, Raila had to cut down those. The strategy to isolate Uhuru is here. And what William Ruto wants is to make sure that Uhuru is removed. You know, you cut the wings of Uhuru Kenyatta because this is a gentleman that worked with Uhuru Kenyatta to the last day. Is you remove his wings in around Uhuru Kenyatta, but you don't get Uhuru Kenyatta. But the tragedy here is, I don't know whether it will get to a point whether then you get Uhuru. You know, it's a point. But some people are also making these strategic moves because they're seeing some looming handshake. So they know that if I make my move now, it will be more relevant than I wait for a handshake between Uhuru, Ruto, or Uhuru Raila, or Ruto Raila. Then I make the move. So because by that time, if the big men are talking, or rather they reconcile, then it means that we don't have, your defection will be relevant. So probably this will be rushed, but it will be one of the strategies. Number two thing I'm seeing, William Ruto wants to bolster the hustler narrative. And bolstering the hustler narrative, and that's why specifically, I think he put a call to Mutahi Ngunyi to bring Mutahi Ngunyi on board. Mutahi Ngunyi was the de facto author of Hustler Nation. The person that started the Hustler versus Dynasty. And Ruto picked the Hustler narrative. Now, if you see him then coming in, he will be under strict instructions to support William Ruto's Hustler agenda. This is because it will then, they will want to develop it. You know, we are some few years, even Hustler Nation started way back in 2018. So it's just part of political packaging. And I tend to think that he's not just defected in Twitter. He might have gotten a job. You know, that's it. He will be part of a backroom team to package William Ruto's next political narrative. So as far as he's saying Anamaliza na Hustler, because he starting with the Hustler Nation, so he's finishing with it, which is of course fine. But then he will be part of a backroom team to repackage William Ruto. Now, the good professor, if the good professor will insist that William Ruto, if the good professor will insist for William Ruto to use the same hustler narrative in the next general election, then I doubt. I doubt whether they are going to head somewhere because this will deem to backfire. If you advise still William Ruto to use an hustler narrative, I think that will be a very tired and old one that might not be potent even moving in future. So That, according to me, is part of what is being seen, bolster the hustler narrative. You'll see more tweets on this. Lastly, or the other third part is, William Ruto is trying to get to the middle class. Tugeges are the young people. But the middle class in Kikuyu nation have been sticking with Uhuru Kenyatta. And some, quite a number, are supporting Raila Odinga. So most of what is happening, if you see the campaign messaging last general election, William Ruto tried to target the youth most, the young people, but the technocrats, the know-it-all fellows, really were the ones that were highly swayed by Mutahi Ngunyi. So he's also trying to reach out to that middle class so that he will also gain their support. And that is why I still insist it's part of political packaging and political consolidation. I don't know to what extent Mutahi Ngunyi will actually convince Mount Kenya, but I understand well that he was also running a YouTube page running political analysis, and it had to stop probably because, you know, it was not advising. We would expect maybe him coming back, support William Ruto and revive the channel, and then it could be part of the strategy, because it has become a little bit difficult to run the page while still supporting William Ruto and with his profile. So maybe it's also part of the strategy to make sure, because that YouTube channel, apart from it being a narrative space, it was also used to make some cash. I see personal interests you cannot underscore. There could be, everything could be sugar coated with, I'm here to finish the hustler narrative thing, but it will still be personal interests. You know, these are people that were in some monthly payrolls. They were running some other few stuff here and there, and abruptly that supply is cut short. So the moment that supply is cut short, they also have to get their own corridors. So I listened to, there was a time, Mutahi, I think that was Itumbi, mentioning at one point that he was asking what kind of budget Mtahi Ngunyi was running. You know, there's some people that would want to be asked some questions and are just evading, maybe sorting immunity from follow-ups in William Ruto's end. So I don't interpret a lot from it. I don't think it's a blow, as people might say. It's not a blow. It's part of Ruto's strategy, and that was long overdue. I think everyone has a right. You choose which political side to associate with. Thank you.